on. Welcome everybody to our 8 p.m. nocturnal session of the Cross-Cultural Leadership Program. We wanted to create something that could answer all of your questions and get you excited about one of the most important opportunities that the Institute for Latino Studies offers to students at the University of Notre Dame. My name is Paloma Garcia Lopez, and I am the Associate Director of the Institute for Latino Studies. And we wanted to give you an overview of the program. And we wanted to do that by introducing you to students and alumni that experience this program in both the virtual and in-person experiences, and give you an opportunity to ask any questions using the chat function. We'll probably get to the questions towards the end in order to give everybody a chance to talk. But we're hoping that more of you chime in over the next hour that we will be together. And this will be posted live tomorrow for anybody who missed it, and you may want to share with them this opportunity. So once again, for those of you who are new to us, ILS advances the understanding of the fastest growing and youngest population in the US and the Catholic Church. We strengthen Notre Dame's mission to prepare transformative leaders in education and all of the professions, including the arts, economic and civic participation, faith and family among Latinos and all members of society. Our objective with the Cross-Cultural Leadership Program is to shape the future of undergraduate and graduate students as transformative leaders with a depth of understanding about the role that the Latino population plays in the United States and beyond. We have expanded our sites across Chicago, which is one of our most important and earliest cities in the program. In the virtual year of last year of 2020, we added various sites in Indiana, mainly in South Bend, which are also part of the opportunity. We have new partners in other parts of the country: Community Science Workshop Network in Sanger, California, Hope Border Institute in El Paso, Future Leaders of America in Oxnard, National Hispanic Cultural Center in Albuquerque, Nation of Makers in Silver Spring. These are just some of the new partners that will participate with us again virtually. However, the three cities we're focusing on in this pandemic year, this ongoing pandemic, are our original cities: Chicago, Los Angeles, and DC. And we've got guests today on our panel that experience those cities. So today, to talk to us about their experience in Los Angeles, we've got two folks with us. We've got Matthew Hinojosa Evans of class of 2018 and Nicholas Crookston, class of 2023. So I'm going to pass it over to Matt to give us a review of his experience, why he participated in CCLP, and how it's helped him get to Stanford Law School. Wow, I know a lot of you are interested in an experience like that. So let's turn it over to Matt.
Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Evans. I actually found CCLP through a professor of mine when I was in the DC program, and he was the one that told me about it, and it sounded really interesting. My biggest, I guess, criticism is that I wish more people knew about it, because it was an incredible program. I got to spend the summer living in East Los Angeles. I got to work for the Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund, which was really cool for me because, I when I was in DC, I was working at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and that kind of ignited my passion for public policy and social justice. And then to be able to work for MALDEF in LA, I don't look it, but I'm Mexican American. That's something that I'm very proud of. That's something that's very important to me. So to work for an organization that is near and dear to my heart and that covers areas and issues that I'm passionate about was a really cool opportunity for me and very unique. So that was kind of what led me there. And once I knew that MALDEF was one of the partner organizations, I immediately applied, and I was, very blessed to have the opportunity to participate in it. The work that I got to do when I was in MALDEF was more on the education side as opposed to the legal and policy side. And that was a nice change of pace for me. It wasn't something that I thought I was going to be doing. It wasn't an area that I thought I was going to go into. So my biggest piece of advice to you would be to express from the get-go what kind of areas you want to work in or what kind of projects you see yourself doing, and don't be shy, right? I mean, you already got the job, so make sure that the assignments and the projects are things that you're passionate about. And I was lucky to fall into a situation where the work I did ended up being something that I was very ended up falling in love with the project. But that would kind of be my biggest piece of advice: is if you know what you want to do, express it right away.
Wonderful. Thank you, Matt. We'll now go to Nicholas Crookston, who is currently a student and is in the Notre Dame program in Washington right now. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. So, like Ms. Paloma said, my name is Nicholas Crookston. I'm a junior at Notre Dame currently, class of 2023. I study political science and global affairs with a minor in Latino studies and a concentration in civil and human rights. I'm getting really good at saying that. And I did CCLP last summer during the virtual year, but my organization was based out of Los Angeles. I worked with the United Farm Workers Foundation in immigration advocacy and government affairs, and it was one of the best experiences that I think I've had at Notre Dame thus far, and truly formative. I walked into the summer knowing that I wanted to do work in immigration advocacy. That's an issue that I'm particularly passionate about. On a personal level, as the son of a Colombian immigrant myself, but then also just academically, and I'm very, very passionate about the issues and advancing the rights of immigrants in my communities and communities across the country. So I applied for CCLP with the intention of wanting to do immigration advocacy work, and I got the job with the United Farm Workers Foundation. I spent the summer working with Miss Andrea Delgado, who was their director of government affairs. She now works with the USDA. But we were doing work on the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, which sought out to create a pathway to legal status for farm workers and their families in the United States. I did a lot of research, which was really, really cool. And I learned that some of the work that I got to do ended up being included in the UFW's lobbying work with the United States Senate in the first Senate Judiciary meeting on farm workers in 20 years. So it was really awesome to know that the work that I got to do with CCLP that summer was making an impact on one of the most essential groups of immigrants in the United States. I highly recommend anyone who's interested in the program to apply, regardless of where you're placed. You will have an experience like that, and you will get to touch the lives of other people in some sort of way and really make an impact. And I'm glad to answer any questions either here or via my email. So thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. Now I'm going to spotlight both you and Matt. Could you tell us about your living situation and what the takeaways were of doing your internship and having that living situation for the summer? Matt?
So I'm from Southern California originally, and actually one of the things when I was interviewing that they wanted me to I guess promise that I wouldn't do, which would be to live at home. I was lucky enough to live close enough to where I was working, or my family's house, where that would have been a viable option, but they knew that it was very important for me to live with my classmates and the other participants in the program. And I 10 out of 10 agreed with that decision. East Los is completely different from Pasadena, California. And it really helped form the summer. It helped form my mindset. It helped me feel connected to the community. It helped me feel connected to the work, because in Pasadena, when you look around, the only brown people that you see are getting pulled over by police. And it's a little different in East Los Angeles, right? That's part of the community. And so, being able to experience that, being able to witness that was probably one of the most transformative parts of the program for me. And, it was also nice to not have to pay rent. I mean, I don't know if my parents would have made me pay rent over the summer, but it's nice that that's built into it, right? You have a place to live. You don't have to go apartment hunting. Everything's set up, and, it was very comfortable.
Thank you. Nicholas, your year was quite different.
Yes, it was. I was fortunate that summer, so it was during COVID, or it is during COVID. So I was virtual with UFWF, but I had the chance to go to Miami-Dade County with a separate program to work with another organization that serves Miami-Dade's farm worker communities. So I was double handing jobs that summer. I don't know if everybody can do that. It certainly was a challenge, but it was awesome to be in a farm worker community, talking with farm workers and talking with their families and seeing them every day, and then getting to go and do my work with United Farm Workers, who were in a different time zone, so it worked out kind of nicely than in Florida. But to hear the stories of the people on the ground, and then to do work that would directly impact them and benefit them, it was like a very holistically transformative summer in that sense, because I really got to understand this issue as it affects people in the middle of a pandemic, right? And to hear, like I said, different stories and different struggles, and to contribute directly to one of the foremost organizations that is advocating for their rights and for the betterment of their communities all across the country. So.
Yes, two very different places than Muncie, Indiana. So you definitely took advantage of the full breadth what Notre Dame has to offer.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great, thank you both. We're now going to talk a little bit about our next city and talk to two students there. Oh, this was a social activity. Dr. Richmond asked that we make sure to mention that there are social activities, from Latino music festivals to Dodgers games to mariachi festivals. And thanks to the generous support of the NB Club of Los Angeles and alumni donations, we're able to sponsor that for the 4 to 5 students that we place in each city. Now we'll move on to talk about the experience in Washington, D.C. Today we have two current students, Natalie Garcia, a junior, and Yannick Ariste, a senior. So let's go talk to Natalie and to Yannick at this point in time. Yannick, do you want to start telling us about your experience?
Hi, everyone. So I had the privilege of interning at the Hispanic Association on Corporate Responsibility, commonly referred to as ACER. And I'm a senior, and I interned right after my first year. So luckily I was in person and I got the full living experience. I wholeheartedly agree with the word transformative. I think to be immersed in a city like DC, where there's so much going on in any arena, you just learn very quickly. It's what happened. And especially at my job placement, the Hispanic Association on Corporate Responsibility advocates for greater representation of Latinos in corporate America, but in a way much beyond the traditional discourse, which is just like, we don't see them in corporate boards. It advocates not only for them in governance, but are Latino small businesses receiving the philanthropy efforts, are they in the supply chains of other big businesses? Are Latino charities in the philanthropy efforts of corporations? And it just takes a much more holistic perspective that I don't think I had ever thought of. And it was clearly an interest to me. I'm a woman in business. I didn't plan on becoming an accounting major. I was thinking management, but fell in love with accounting, and this is a much wider perspective. I also got to learn a lot of Excel, which didn't have a lot of experience with, but got immersed, and it ended up, the work I did on Excel ended up in their Corporate Inclusion Index report, which is basically an annual report they publish on the state of Latinos in corporate America, where they publish an overall ranking of their efforts in governance, philanthropy, procurement, and employment. I think living with the other interns was just phenomenal as well, because we got to hear all about what was happening in DC. Like I said, it's a bustling city. Where I was here talking about diversity in corporate America, some of my roommates were talking about legal initiatives, and other were talking about faith initiatives, and overall, so enriching.
Thank you so much, Yannick. We'll now go to Natalie.
Yeah, so I participated in CCLP this past summer. So of course we were all virtual, as Nick had said. And my experience trying to finally start to engage with this organization was a little bit different, because Paloma, if you remember, I had applied for the Library of Congress position for after my freshman year, and then everything was canceled, then it got moved to virtual. And it was honestly worth the wait because it was really like one of the most, like Yannick said, transformative experiences that I've had. So again, I worked with the Library of Congress in the Hispanic reading room, so like the Hispanic division of the library. And I mostly worked one-on-one with a research librarian named Danny Thurber. And she was absolutely wonderful. She gave a lot of time and attention to all the work that we were doing. Just for reference, like her brainchild at the Library of Congress has been the Civil Rights Guide, so like the Hispanic Civil Rights Guide, and she worked really hard putting that platform together. It's on the Library of Congress's website, and it basically just like provides an index for like resources and history, and it's a really rich content. And so what I had worked on with her, there were a couple of different projects. So one of them was really just filling out this spreadsheet full of different resources, websites that were going to end up on the web archive for the Library of Congress. So they really wanted to like have a resource where you could like go through and find different like Latinx websites, organizations, shops, like influencers, figures, artists, whatever it was. So that was one project. And then the other project that was really exciting was we got to work on the Library of Congress's first ever Afro-Latinx research guide. So that was really the bulk of what we were working on during the summer. And that was really great because she really let me take the lead on that. And it actually came from a conversation that she and I had personally. I think we had been talking about the lack of Afro-Latinx representation in the Heights. And as a mixed race Caribbean myself with sisters who are darker complexions, and just like we have had a lot of conversations about like, you know, if not everybody is being represented, can we really call these examples of representation a win? And representation is an issue that's very close and like very dear to my heart. So that was really fun, being able to just like scour the internet and the archives and the resources for a bunch of different books, whether they be like on activism. We had a lot of scholarly books. We were able to have a tab on music and artists, and also a tab on young, like elementary level books, so that teachers would have a resource to go to and look at like just books that they could give to their children from a very young age, so that there wouldn't be so many gaps in those resources. So all of my work was done obviously remotely, and I had meetings with her on a regular basis. So it was a very personal project. And even though it wasn't in person, it provided for a lot of like flexibility. And I know that that's an issue for a lot of people if they want to be helping out at home, or if they have other personal matters to attend to. It really allowed for that flexibility during the summer.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for mentioning that, because we are offering a virtual option in CCLP today. So when you apply using our Google form that's on latinostudies.nd.edu, please indicate if you're only interested in virtual, if you're only interested in in-person, or you'd like to be considered for both, because it doesn't matter to you what kind of placement you get. So please let us know. So that really expands our ability to offer over 24 internships this summer. So the two of you had very different living experiences, very different class experiences in terms of the course and who your faculty person was. Could you tell us a little bit more about your experience as a DC intern in terms of your living and your community situation? Yannick?
So as a DC intern in person, we got to live right in the center of DC, actually where the ND Washington program typically stays, which was great to just be able to walk to work, get to everywhere easily, especially because it's such a bustling city. There's a lot of networking opportunities, and sometimes my boss would even tell me, oh, there's going to be this meeting on the hill, and like I'd be able to go like in the middle of the day. So definitely in the center of everything, which was crucial, I think, both on like a social aspect, but also a professional aspect. And I was living with 3 other Notre Dame students. And like I mentioned previously, from all sorts of backgrounds. There was 2 of us that were business, 2 poli-sci. And there was like legal work that one was doing, another one was doing policy work, another one was doing faith work. And I think even just coming home and like having dinner with your roommates, you start to hear about all these things that impact Latino communities, and you may not have been aware of because there's like a specific nuance of a specific issue. And overall in the course, since it was in person and we were working, we met like every other week just for like a long period of time. And we would go after work and we'd eat and we'd like discuss a book, or we'd discuss like important issues that were happening right at that moment. Since there was a lot of like immigration crisis in summer of 2019, that was something that really took up our time and, you know, our attention. And we not only got to do it, the four of us, with our faculty mentor, who was a current Notre Dame professor, but also a Notre Dame alumni who served as a mentor throughout the summer. And as a young professional working in DC and hearing his story, we got to benefit a lot from that, even when he would just have one-on-ones with us in like a cafe. It was just a lot of opportunities to learn from each other, and I'm really grateful for it.
Thank you. Natalie.
So yeah, my situation was definitely very different. I stayed at home, so I was literally in my like childhood room doing like all this work that I had dreamed about doing for so long. So it was kind of, I think in that sense, it helped with like that reflection process of like, what am I doing, and how am I contributing, and what kind of quality of work do I want to put forth. I'm not gonna lie, it was very difficult for me to think of all the things that I could have done in DC over the summer. I remember Danny had said like, oh, I would have been taking you on tours through the library's tunnels right now. And I was like, well, you know, that was a little bit of a hard pill to swallow. But the other side of that is, especially like going through COVID, I know like it's been hard to be apart from family, and it's been hard to like seek support. And I was also working through like some mental health crises myself. And it really ended up being a blessing in disguise that I got to work from home, because I got to get like the time and attention, the professional help that I needed from home, as well as the emotional support that I needed from my family during that time, without like sacrificing this really special and important opportunity that I was really looking forward to. And I know that that's a big issue for a lot of people on campus. I have so many friends who have had to take leaves of absence for mental health reasons. And I know that they probably would have been able to like take advantage of opportunities like these early on. So it really did end up being a blessing in disguise.
You're muted.
Thank you. This is what happens when you have too many windows open at the same time. Thank you both. We're now going to talk about our experience in Chicago. So we have two folks with us today. We have Jacob Fries and we have Angela Rogers. Angela was with us in the morning for our noon session. And so we got a very good and lengthy discussion with her and another alum about her experience, but I will have her share briefly what she did in her experience. And then we're also going to include some information for you to contact a third student who interned in Chicago, to make sure that you have somebody to reach out to that's in your field. So let's start with Jacob Fries. Could you tell us about your experience with CCLP?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Jacob. Angela and I were actually in the same cohort. We were roommates in Little Village. But I worked at the Rush Alzheimer's Disease Center in part of their community outreach and engagement team. So a lot of that work involved really being out in the community with my main supervisor, Alyssa, and we would go to different community events and try to recruit Latino adults into a research study that was aimed at finding health disparities that could impact the presentation of dementias in the Latino population. So it was really fruitful for me to be able to engage at this hospital, which was a really interesting setting, and I got to take advantage of shadowing a physician and getting to go to lectures from various people from the hospital. That was very interesting, while at the same time being able to be involved in work that was focused on the Latino population. And so for me, I think it was really unique because instead of a lot of my work being focused in the physical building where I was placed, it was often coming back and working in places that were actually close to where I lived. And so there was that unique connection to really being aware of how my work was relevant to the community I was living in, and I really appreciated that. And it definitely also guided my kind of personal goals, since like I'm really interested in public health and really having that part of my career. I'm planning on applying to medical school this summer, but I definitely want to include a master's of public health in that, and that was something that was really informed by my CCLP experience. So I've been very appreciative for having that experience.
Wow, thank you, Jacob. Angela, could you share with us some takeaways from your experience with CCLP?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Angela. I graduated in 2020, and I majored in art history and with a supplementary major in Spanish and a Latino studies minor. And I interned at the National Museum of Mexican Art, where my mentor was the registrar. And since I didn't really know how I wanted to be involved in museums like as a career, she really helped me explore all of those facets. So we worked with the curatorial team and the collections team and the education team, and I really got to see all the inner workings of a museum. And I found out that I want to do museum education, so that's really great. And then I also became super aware of, you know, who has access to art institutions. And so I'm really interested in thinking about that. And Pilsen, where the museum is also known for murals. So thinking about public art versus, you know, more institutional settings and how people have access to that has become really important to me. And I currently work at a museum now in my hometown that's free. And I'm kind of like a in-museum educator. So it's affecting what I'm doing right now.
Excellent. That's wonderful. That was actually my next question for all of you, was to share how CCLP shaped either your identity, your career choices, your friendships. So think on that for a moment. I want to give Dr. Richmond a chance to talk about the academic side of the CCLP experience, if we can, and then we'll come back to all of you as panelists. Thanks so much for sharing what you have thus far. Dr. Richmond? Can you unmute?
I had something else up on the screen, sorry. It's just so great to see everybody. So very quickly, CCLP is an academic course, and it counts toward the Latino Studies minor or supplemental major. And most of the students in the program are either in the minor or the major. So it's a fall, it counts as a fall course, by the way. And so the registration for it is in a way special. So as you know, the scholarship is not transferred until the fall, and also the course sometimes will put you over your maximum. So in addition to having special permission from me as the academic director of Latino Studies to give you that permission, you sometimes have to go interact with your dean, who will recognize that the work of the course has been completed. And so it's not really posing a challenge to, you know, your workload for the fall. So what is that workload? Again, it's an academic course. It's SU or pass fail, so it's not super heavy. We know that you're going to be volunteering 35 to 40 hours a week. And so, you know, it's probably the workload is more on par with what you'd find in a 1-credit class. We read texts that are both about the location that you would be working in. So for example, Angela and Jacob read a lot about Latino settlement in Chicago and the challenges of Latino community there, which is, you know, the second biggest metropolitan community in the United States of Latinos. And then we also went by themes. So they came to understand issues of transnational families, issues of health, voting, religion, labor, the market, including the huge food scene, which we also, of course, experienced personally. And the assignments, sometimes there were films as well. The assignments involve a reflection, either weekly or biweekly reflection that comments on the assignment, as well as keeping the professor abreast of how what you're reading or seeing is influencing your experience in the internship, the volunteer work, and vice versa. We also ask the students to get permission to interview 2 leaders and then write reports about what they learned from a deep interview with a leader, and getting their life story and their contributions as advocates. And then finally, it's an integrative paper that you'll present the results of in a public forum where your supervisor at the site you're volunteering at and other members of the community from ILS, et cetera, will be present. So those are the requirements. I wanted to add that, well, I used to meet with the students about once a week. There's also, for the in-person classes, a mentor who is an ILS alum, either a minor or supplemental major of the program, also a CCLP veteran, maybe a 2-time CCLP veteran, who is from the community and still in the community. For example, Rosia Aguinaga, who's from Pilsen, and was such a wonderful support to the students, or Victor Cruz, who's from LA and played that same wonderful role for the students in LA, as Matt knows. And I would just add, there are also so many wonderful events to take in by yourself, with your fellow students, that are great bonding events, but often the mentor has organized them, or the professor, or all together we would do this. All kinds of cultural events, whether they be enormous mariachi festivals or plays written by a Latinx playwright and performed by a Latinx cast, etc. And so these events are also not only fun, but educational, and they get incorporated in your overall academic experience.
Thank you. Could you tell us about the writing components, Dr. Richmond?
Sure. So there's the reflection, which is, I used to give it every week, and it's 1.5 to 2 pages. I also allowed other formats, for example, podcasts or photo essays, etc. And then the paper is about 10 to 12 pages, and the public part of it would be done as a presentation. And the paper is due at the end of the session. Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about the interviews with community leaders?
Sure. So that would be a report that usually, it takes place over 1 or 2 meetings, and that could be done virtually. And that paper is probably 3 or 4 pages, and there are 2 of those.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's now go to our panelists. Could you talk to us now about, and we'll go in the same order that we did earlier. We'll start with Matt. Could you talk to us about what transformative change have you experienced? Some of you alluded to it being a transformative experience, but could you tell us, was it about yourself? Was it about the work? Was it about your future? Was it about your friendships? Was it about your faith? Let us know in 2 minutes or less what your takeaways were of being part of CCLP.
Yeah, so it worked on both, I guess, like the practical and the work and the career level, and then also on the personal level. On the practical level, it kind of inspired me to further pursue the law, and I guess specifically criminal defense work. Right, the only really area in the country where Latinos and Black people are maybe overrepresented is in the criminal justice system, but everywhere else we fall short. And that's something that I am hoping to combat in my life. And being in CCLP and connecting with the community in that way, and witnessing the difference between the life that I lived that summer versus how I grew up, motivated me to want to be on the defense side, right? And to be that advocate and to represent people going through the criminal defense system or the criminal justice system. On the personal level, and that kind of connects to what I talked about earlier, my upbringing. Because I'm white passing, I was able to pass the majority of my life, and I was able to kind of shield the fact that I'm Latino because of the benefits that come from not being Latino. And going through this program, and it kind of made me realize that this is something that I should be proud of. This is something that I should embrace. This is a part of me, and I need to lean into it and incorporate it into my life and into my career. So, I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but a personal role model of mine was Muhammad Ali. And before James Brown said, "I'm Black and I'm proud," Muhammad Ali said, "I'm Black and I'm pretty," right? And what he did throughout his life was he affirmed the power and capacity of Black people, and he was unafraid to be who he was. And I thought that I would be a hypocrite to not, like him, embrace who I am and be proud of who I am, regardless of what I can get away with. And so CCLP helped me connect with that side of me. It helped me embrace that side of me. And that's something that I will always owe the program and the university for throughout my entire life.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Nicholas?
Sure. So, 2 minutes is a very short amount of time to talk about it says the word again, transformative programs as transformative as CCLP is. For me, it set me up in a lot of ways as my first internship for the work that I'm doing now. Excuse me, and the work that I hope to do in the future. That was my first internship opportunity at Notre Dame, was with CCLP. And with United Farm Workers Foundation, I got to see the side of policymaking that was advocating the legislature, right, to pass laws that directly uplift and support a particular community. It's important to me that my work, I guess I'll kind of backtrack a bit. It's important to me, regardless of what I'm doing, that my work be geared towards uplifting and supporting the communities that I come from. I've mentioned before, I'm Latino, I'm Colombian American, I'm the son of an immigrant. The Latino community, the immigrant community, those are my communities. So it's important that my work, be geared towards supporting and uplifting them. I got to do that in one sense with United Farm Workers, and now today I'm in Washington, D.C. With the Washington program, working with an organization called Voto Latino, which is now, I'm doing the campaign side of things. So I was doing like the legislative government affairs side, and now I'm doing like the campaign side of uplifting my communities in politics. And I see myself like, this is like a second building block from the original experience with CCLP. I see this like bringing me, I look forward to like future careers in like public service and that kind of thing. And I think both of these experiences that I've gotten to do, directly working with people, directly working to better my communities, to better the world around me, starting with CCLP, are really preparing me for a future career and, getting to maybe be behind some policy making or some change making in the world around us for the communities and the people that I love.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Yannick, can you share with us how the experience was transformative for you?
I think similar to Nick, with it being my first internship, it just exposed me to a lot that I didn't necessarily know existed. I'm born and raised in Miami, been there my whole life, and going to DC was just like a shock. Like there's so many possible ways in which one can impact the community, and there's so many things going on at the same time. I don't think I could have fathomed it beforehand, quite honestly. And beyond that, like I am a business major, and social issues and Latino issues are really important to me. Like I grew up in Miami, like that is my community. Like 70% of Miami is Latino. I'm like the daughter of Cuban immigrants, but it's sometimes hard to reconcile like that interest with my major. I'm like, how could they intersect sometimes? And I think my experience broadened my perspective significantly because I saw like I could be in a corporation in their community stewardship, for example, and make sure that the community stewardship is representative. And there's so many ways that business can and does help or harm the Latino community, and so many changes that are yet to be made. And I think it really had me re-examine how I could be like a Latino leader in the business world.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Let's go on to Natalie.
Yeah, so this was definitely a very helpful process for me as well. So I'm a neuroscience and behavior major in the College of Arts and Letters and a Latino Studies supplementary major. And although those things have never changed, and I love my major, I love my programs, I'm very passionate about like all of the information that I've been able to learn during my time at Notre Dame. But my career paths have shifted, as you know, Paloma, and as you have helped guide me through this process. Paloma actually was the one who kind of recommended the Library of Congress position to me because she knows how passionate I am about just like information in general. I came in pre-med and that lasted maybe like a couple months. And then I really saw myself in like a clinical or a research position in psychology, but I think through CCLP and through some of my other classes, through the Institute of Latino Studies, particularly Professor Ruiz's Race and American Popular Culture, it kind of became very difficult to ignore that like, this isn't something that I want as a hobby. This isn't something that I want on the side. This isn't really something that I want to supplement my career in mental health. I want like mental health and advocacy to supplement kind of a very Latino focused career in academia. So I do hope to pursue a PhD in American Studies, Latino Studies, and try to become a professor and get myself on a tenure route eventually. So this definitely helped in that discernment process because I just felt very much in my natural habitat, just being surrounded by information and being surrounded by people who wanted to make this information accessible. Something that Danny really drove home during my time working with her was that information is power, right? So like learning about our communities, learning about Latino advocacy, learning about Afro-Latinos gives agency to those communities so they can then put that information like into action. And that was something that just like spoke very strongly to me. So it was just a very important part of my discernment process in general. And it was also a very empowering part because I did work that I felt was very important. And I think I needed that reminder or confirmation of that I was capable of doing this work, especially thanks to the resources that ILS has been able to make available to us.
Thank you for that. Can we go now to Jacob?
Yes, so I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, but CCLP was really the first time where I thought seriously about supplementing career in medicine with public health. And for me especially, it was that working in at Rush, where it's very much focused on researching how different societal issues affect the health of Latinos, it became very hard for me to ignore that there are certain systemic issues in the medical industry that just lead to unfair outcomes for many Latinos and Latino communities. And so for me to pursue an MD with an MPH is really hoping to gear that I can not only be a physician that provides culturally competent care to the Latino community, but someone that can hopefully influence some health-related policy because there are issues that affect Latinos that need to be addressed on that level. And that also, my CCLP experience, I think, is really what drove me to where I am right now, which is I'm actually also in DC right now, but I'm working for an organization called the Latin American Youth Center, and I'm working in like their public health focused team. And so I think that work is very reflective of my time at CCLP and in the Latino Studies major. And just continuing to be able to serve the Latino community is definitely a way that CCLP has formed me on that path. So definitely don't plan on stopping that work, and CCLP really definitely helped shape that. So.
Excellent, thank you. Angela, what would you like to share with us?
Yeah, so going into my CCLP experience, I'm from a majority Latino city, San Antonio. So I was really excited to see what it would be like living in the Latino neighborhoods of Chicago. And like I said, when I was there, I realized that I'm really passionate about museum education, who has access to museums, who's represented in museums. And so now in my current position, I feel like I'm really pushing that even more, even though, you know, I'm not very high up on the totem pole in the museum. I'm the only one who speaks Spanish in our whole institution that like is around visitors all the time, which is crazy because we are a majority Latino city and we have plenty of international guests. And there are resources in Spanish, but again, I'm the only one who could actually talk to people in galleries in Spanish if it's needed. So I really just want to keep pushing that in these art institutions because I want them to be more accessible. So that's kind of my goal in life now.
Thank you for sharing that, Angela. Did we hear from everybody? Yes, I see you nodding, Dr. Richmond. Are there some closing words you'd like to share with us?
Well, some of you have also mentioned, you know, how CCLP has influenced you in the long term. And many students keep up those relationships, the networks that you connect with while you're in your CCLP internship might last for a long time, and they might lead to something in your career. We've had students who've done CCLP, for example, in Chicago at Sarah's Inn, which is a leading place to advocate for to fight domestic violence. Students who returned in their postgraduate year to do a whole year-long internship, and then from there went on to law school. And now they're representing people that they accompanied to court, or the kind of, you know, the types of people they accompanied to court when they were just interning there for a summer. So the long-term benefits of CCLP are really important to think about.
Absolutely. I've shared here our partners in Chicago, which have grown tremendously over the last 2 years. Instead of losing partners, we've gained partners. And any of you alumni or students who engage with Latino serving nonprofits or government agencies, please let us know if they want to forge a partnership with the Institute for Latino Studies. We were able to expand into Indiana, in South Bend and Indianapolis. And these internships are available to any current applicants that have housing. So the CCLP program does not provide an apartment or house for students at this time in that city. We're still raising funds from donors and creating a presence there of Notre Dame interns and what they can do. But we do have housing in Chicago. And this slide I failed to pause on earlier, but in Los Angeles, we have 5 returning partners, as well as 2 who have expanded their work and want more than 1 intern. In Washington, D.C., we have our trusted 6 partners continuing with us again. Also, the Hispanic Association for Corporate Responsibility has expanded to 2 interns in person, including an intern during the spring for the Notre Dame Washington program, if that becomes something of interest to a CCLP or Latino Studies major or minor. And we have 4 internships at Unidos US in education policy, health policy, education in terms of STEM and planning a STEM conference, as well as data analysis. And so that's 4 internships there. And the US Conference of Catholic Bishops is coming back this year. They were not able to do something last year in a virtual nature, but will be hiring again this year in an in-person nature. So please stay in touch with us. You can meet with Dr. Richmond or myself at any time. You can send questions to latino@nd.edu at any time, and you can learn more about these positions and about the job descriptions of prior interns by inquiring with us. Our application deadline is tomorrow for priority applicants. That's Latino Studies majors and minors, Latino Studies scholars that are merit scholars at the university, And anyone who wants to grab an internship right away, the sooner you apply, the higher you will get on your preference list. The deadline's not until March 1st for all undergrads who want to take advantage of this opportunity, and all students receive a $3,000 scholarship upon the completion of the coursework and the full-time 8-week internship. For more information, look at our website at latinostudies.nd.edu. Under undergraduate and student opportunities, you will see all of our partners, a video explaining the experience as well as the application. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and we wish you well on this very cold evening in South Bend. Thank you, alumni. Thank you, students, for being with us. And if you are open to being contacted, please put your email in the chat so that everyone can see that. We are open to suggestions and questions at any time. And so we hope that you'll reach out to all of us at latinostudies.nd.edu. Thank you, everybody.
Hi.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.